The opposition of Neera Tanden's confirmation to lead the Office of Management and Budget has drawn scrutiny from some liberals who claim that the sentiment towards Tanden stems from sexism and racism. Biden White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, she played into that narrative in her defense of Tanden's nomination. Part of what she said here is that Neera Tanden equals accomplished policy expert and first Asian American woman to lead OMB.
Host of the Bad Faith podcast, contributing editor to Current Affairs, former press secretary of the Bernie Sanders campaign, Briahna Joy Gray. She joins us now to discuss, what do you make of all this, Briahna? It really is an amazing way in order to basically gaslight legitimate and some stupid opposition to Neera Tanden. I don't see what her identity really has to do with either her tweets or her major solicitations of large corporate and foreign money to her think tank.
Look, her identity would be relevant if, because of her life experiences, it informed her policy preferences so that she actually had spent her life and plans to spend her future protecting the very programs that enabled her family to survive. However, we don't have to speculate based on her identity what her beliefs are and what she will do, because she has a significant record of being on the record as being willing to cut the very social programs she cites as a justification for being well suited to this position. And that is at its core an incredibly cynical manipulation of people's sincere value for identity in order to advance the interests of a woman who, in fact, is not especially qualified for this position and, in fact, might be very detrimental to the people she claims to represent.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that's so frustrating about this, is that you use the identity to claim that you're standing for things that would actually help the groups that Neera Tanden, the community that she grew up in and other oppressed communities. But actually what you're doing is just using it as a shield to keep from doing the sorts of programs and having the sorts of policies that would benefit those groups the most.
Absolutely. And what's so frustrating about the Biden administration in particular is that they seem to really be on a roll with this stuff. Whereas in previous years, there might have been some subtlety in this area. The press secretary, Jen Psaki, has done this now multiple times. You could get a whole clip reel together. Joe Biden got a question about the Hyde Amendment and his stance on abortion. The response was, I'd like to remind you that he's a practicing Catholic. There was a question about regulatory issues around GameStop, and the response was, I'd like to remind you that Janet Yellen is our first female Treasury Secretary. There was a question about a female small business owner, and the response was, I'd like to remind you that we have our first female SBA president. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And at a certain point, I wonder if the Biden administration is actually going to dilute its ability to do these things. And we're actually going to have to contend with why they keep nominating people who, yes, are diverse, but actually aren't reflecting the interests of the folks that put them in office.
Well, that's the weirdest part about this whole thing. I think Ryan Grimm referred to it as kind of a diversity lottery, where sometimes you have somebody like Lloyd Austin who is tied to the entire military-industrial complex, and you're like, this is bad. And then in other cases, you'd have somebody, I think he referred to as Javier Barcera, who was like more friendly towards Medicare for all, also happened to be Latino, and you're like, it actually worked out well. And which demonstrates really the hollowness of whenever you focus only on this, that you're just not acknowledging underlying policy details whatsoever.
Yeah, and it feeds into a lot of sometimes bad faith criticisms from, the right about identity. It's not that identity doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if we live in a country where people have been purposefully marginalized and discriminated against on the basis of their identities, if there are laws on the books until recent history that make the rights of different groups in this country different from other groups in this country, then it makes sense for people to want to agitate politically to protect those rights and fight for equality. But this is a very, very, very different thing. Not to mention the fact that this cynical weaponization of identity is being coupled with a weaponization of civility politics, where all of a sudden the very people who are arguing that one of the worst things about Donald Trump was his lack of decorum are suddenly brushing away Neera Tanden's tweets and commentary on a whole host of issues as immaterial. At the end of the day, it's the hypocrisy that leads voters to not really trust these kinds of administrations, and also to not really have a basis to make decisions about who is actually going to fight for them, because nobody is talking in clear terms about what the policy preferences and the policy history of these candidates are.
Yeah. Can we, Darren, throw the tweet back up on the screen from Jen Psaki that we put up there before? she talks about, and this gets to your original point, Brie, about Neera Tanden. She talks about her lived experience having benefited from a number of federal programs as a kid. And here's the thing, that phrasing becomes meaningless when, as you point out, she worked to cut exactly those federal programs that she benefited from as a kid. And so it just makes me feel like now every time that phrase gets thrown around, it's often used for these like disingenuous purposes to erase the damage that a particular person has ultimately done and sort of excuse it.
It's I heard someone describe it once as also a weaponized empathy, and this is something you see a lot also from Joe Biden himself. There were a couple of moments, most recently during last week's town hall, during which he got a question about student debt, and he responded that, my kids went to these schools. He starts to go down this path before ratcheting back and realizing, okay, it's not necessarily about my kids. And during the campaign, he brought up the fact that as his son was so tragically struggling with the illness that ultimately killed him, that he had a lot of medical debt, and that medical bills were an issue. But that fact, which is incredibly tragic and important, was used to justify why he did not support Medicare for All, the program that would have alleviated the problem that he described. And that puts commentators in a difficult position of having to critique someone as they expose a real vulnerability about themselves. And that starts to feel really kind of ugly, that you would take such a sensitive, difficult situation and use it as a shield to prevent other people from being able to remedy the harm that you're describing. And I think that it takes a lot of courage to push back against that. And I'm really grateful to you and other commentators who are willing to do so.
Yeah.
Weaponized empathy. I think that's actually a really important concept. Brie, thank you so much. Always great to have your analysis.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Coming up, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is calling for a 9/11-style commission to investigate the Capitol riots. Worked really well the first time. Host of Pushback by Aaron Mate. He discusses what could go wrong when rising continues.